Welcome to Automation Hunter, the podcast for entrepreneurs and businesses ready to scale smarter. In this series, Apps, Hacks, and Bounties, your host, Will Christensen, dives into game-changing tools and strategies alongside special guests, sharing insights to boost productivity and solve real business challenges. Ready to innovate? Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. This is actually one of we've only done a few returning guest episodes, but we had such a fantastic episode. We talked change management. Like when we got to the hacks section of Apps, Hacks, and Bounties, Summer had some amazing things to say about how to manage a team. So welcome, Summer Miller, back to the show.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So today, we're going to do kind of a break from our Apps, Hacks, and Bounties. We're actually going to focus more around hacks or learning technology. We're going to do a little role play. So I'm going to play the part of a business owner who is trying to get his small team to kind of figure out how to adopt automation, how to make that become part of AI. And one of the big concerns that these employees are bringing up is it's going to replace me. Like this is going to replace me. And I found that the best employees shift the focus and they're like, oh no, it's not going to replace me. It's going to enable me. And I'm going to be that much more valuable to the business because I'm the one that built the automation. And so as a business owner, I'm going to play that part. So I'm going to kind of come off and tell you, here's my problem. And then Summer is going to play her part as the change management expert and give me some advice around some of the different challenges I'm facing as a business owner trying to implement automation as part of my culture. Sound good?
Right, here we go.
Awesome. Okay. So, my name is Sam and, I own a consultancy. We do all sorts of different stuff, but mostly it's a kind of a mini marketing agency. We got 8 to 10 team members here and there, and we're trying to implement automation. We hired this guy named Will Christensen. He's given us a bunch of ideas about what to automate. He's given us different tools to like figure out what the right things are to automate. But I cannot seem to get anybody to actually like they all have ideas. The entire team, I can think of 3 team members right now. They have ideas of things that they know would save them an hour a week, and they're not doing them. Like they're not actually digging into the research, and they're not. I'm paying Will. He's on retainer. Like they can just ask, and they're not asking Will to like help them with those different pieces. How do I get them like I don't know what to do.
It's a hard thing because I think you can see the opportunity ahead and maybe the need. And I think that sometimes we just have to realize we're at a different starting point. So you're kind of already in the thought process, you are in the conversation, you've been talking with Will, you have alignment to this makes sense for the future, and you're trying to get your team to the same place, but their starting point is very different from yours. And so I think that's first where I would begin, is understanding that people are entering the conversation at a different place than you are. So
Interesting.
when
Okay.
folks are resistant, because you're seeing some kind of not engaging, some resistance, some different things right now.
Not outright resistance.
Yeah.
I get a lot of yeses. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. And then we never do that.
It's just not happening. What are some of the things a change like this could represent to the team? What are your ideas around that?
So right now, for example, I have a team member who she's in charge of like scheduling. And then I've got another team member who's in charge of email. And those two communicating has actually turned into an interesting roadblock because obviously if there's a new email, it affects the schedule and vice versa. And so like the time schedules aren't lining up exactly. And so like stuff's not happening. So one of the automations for the scheduling person is to take every email that's coming in off of something that's actively being scheduled. And we even have a platform where we're tracking everything that's being actively scheduled. That's how much is going on the calendar. The automation we came up with was, well, let's make it so all of those conversations just flow into the scheduling system so that you can see every time that there's something that's come up. It's new information. It's not dependent on what time, the other team members online. Let's just have it flow in. And so for her, it would mean a lot less dropped balls and a lot less stress around like every time there was a communication from that person, period, they would know about it. And we can even set that up like via text message. Like we could even make it so the text messages that go to my phone get forwarded there as well. So like, there's no reason why this couldn't be like a huge boon to her.
And it sounds like you're seeing that pain point, some of dropping of the ball, things that aren't working seamlessly. Do think your team members feel that same pain?
Oh, she feels it. I don't know if she feels it as acutely as me
Mhm.
because she doesn't realize when a dropped ball equals a missed sale.
Got it.
And so I think sometimes I can do a better job of communicating like we just probably lost that sale. Because we mixed up the person's name or like it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of the trust. Because you're in that initial stage. Every interaction with a new potential customer is so crucial to come off, crisp and connected and coordinated. So if we come off discombobulated and we're trying to tell people, hey, we can help you, you know, do your marketing just right,
Yeah.
they're gonna we're gonna question that because we're not doing the
Yeah.
scheduling just right.
Well, and I think you're onto something with this because you can see kind of that end-to-end experience. What does it feel like for the client to work with us? Are we
Mm.
removing friction? Is it seamless? Does it feel good? Are there bumps in the road? And a lot of times our team members, they're heads down focused on their piece of it. It's disconnected from that experience.
So they're not even looking at the entire assembly floor to be like, hey, the widget came in over here and it gets built over there. All they're worried about is bolting on the wing because
That's
that's
right.
their job.
And I think that sometimes it can feel like when the boss is saying, "We're going to do this thing, it's so cool. It's going to make us better." That
You know
that
what?
can feel important, but not enough. It's not compelling enough. It
Oh my
doesn't come from
gosh.
within.
Summer, I have been that employee. Like I've been that guy on the team where the boss came in and said, "This is super important," and I was like, "This guy doesn't even know what the heck's going on."
Yeah.
Like he's not in my day to day. He's not trudging through the trenches,
Yeah.
and someday I'll be him, and I won't do that to my teammates.
Well, it can feel like the flavor of the month, or this will pass. I can just hang out here and be kind of
Oh,
act like I'm engaged, but not really do anything because I think it's going to go away anyway.
I'm so guilty of
So,
changing the flavor of the month.
well, and people have read that kind of that rhythm of operating, and so they're going to wait it out. Sometimes it feels like, this will pass. I'll just hang out here, and then he'll get beyond to something else. And if you know this is an actual direction that you need to go, sometimes it's not enough to just say, "Here's where we're going. Follow me," or do the thing. You want to find a way to connect them to what's actually happening in a way that's compelling for them. And if they can voice it themselves, it makes a huge difference. So if they
Interesting.
can
Okay.
say, "This is the pain point, how does that affect the experience?" If that's a discussion they're part of, when they can voice it and say, "This is the breakdown, this is the difference it would make if we could alleviate that or bridge a gap. And then here's an idea of how we might be able to use this automation or this tool to do that." Then it's coming from them. They are the designer now, not you. And that makes a huge difference because now their fingerprints are all over it.
And when their fingerprints are all over it, they own it, which is what I wanted to begin with.
Mhm.
So, what sorts of conversations? I think this might be where the wheel's coming off the cart for me, Summer. How do I have these conversations in such a way that people see I love being the designer? I think this is part of my problem. I love being the designer. Love, love, love being the designer. I think part of my problem is I'm not allowing them to be the designer. Like I've already dreamed up, ooh, which I hate when people do that to me.
Yes. I think I don't think you have to let go of the design piece of it because big picture, you're the architect or the designer. You're thinking about how do we grow this company? How
Yeah,
do
but how
we
do we solve this
direct?
specific problem? I don't need to be the
And
designer for that.
and some of the how, their piece of it, they can put their fingerprints over that, but they still have to understand how does this driver connect to other pieces. And that's where I think bringing them into it could be a working session, a design session where you just say, we're trying to grow in this way. I believe we can use these tools or these ways, these methods to get there, but I need your help to define it further because you see things that I don't see. I
Mm.
want to know, where does it hurt today? Where are the breakdowns? How does that affect our customer? Let's talk through that and then let's see how we could use some of this to solve for it.
So this is actually super interesting because this is reminding me of Entrepreneur's Operating System, so EOS, and issue processing. So in issue processing, they say identify, define, solve. And what you just described, because I actually did a training to our mentors at Entrepreneur's Apprentice on how to run an L10, or how to teach your apprentice how to run an L10, because really the apprentices should be running the L10s. Identify, define, solve is exactly what you just described. It is meant to be a collaborative, lets everybody voice in to see if we fully understand the problem and the challenges around that problem. And nobody gets to jump to solution making until we've identified everything that's there. And then we've defined the specific bottleneck or issue that's associated with all the crap that we defined. And then we solve.
Yeah. And people will throw out the solutions. We're just not hardwired to do it. I think we're conditioned to do that. And sometimes you don't want to shut that down completely, but you can say that's a possible solution.
That's
Let's
a
throw it
possible
over
solution.
here.
Let me put it on the
Yeah.
board over here on the Miro
Yeah.
board. I like it.
We'll
Yeah,
we'll
because
look at that again.
if you just
Yeah.
say, oh no, we're not in solution making mode, like they'll be like, well then I'm not going to get any solutions.
Yeah. You definitely you want to give room for them to put their voice to it. Their fingerprints is how I usually describe it. And a lot of them don't want to design the whole thing end to end. They just want to have some autonomy. And we need that from just a neuroscience perspective. We as humans function better when we have autonomy, when we have choice and influence. And it doesn't have to be over the whole thing. It could just be in small ways that we can influence what's happening around us or control what's happening. And sometimes we can think that that means everybody gets a vote and everything. And it doesn't have to be that way. You, as the business owner, can still say, this is where we're going, the big picture. You're just inviting them into the pieces that matter most to them and their day to day.
Man, so many nuggets there. So if as Sam, what's my simple action plan? Like what should I do first? We talked about so many different ideas. You said like a working session, like what would be my next step to and let's just focus in on this one automation.
Yeah.
Or this one rather than automation. I just realized this pain point.
Yeah.
Let's look at this pain point together so that we're all in the same place in terms of the conversation. Because in my head, I've already solved it. Like
Yeah.
it's already done.
Yeah.
So what should I do with this pain point?
I think, and this is the hard thing for business leaders, I think you have to own where there might have been a miss because the train's already going down the tracks. And it's okay to take a pause and say, hey, I said some things, I announced some things that we were going to do, and I realized I really should have brought you in earlier to make sure this is the right solution and that I'm looking at this with all the right perspectives, the right people at the table. I want to back up a little bit. Let's have a session where we come together and we just start talking about what are the problems we need to solve for to grow this business well. We might land on this as a solution, but I want to make sure it's the right thing before we go there.
So I'm curious because if we talk about like just the, um, if we talk about just if we open up the question, what problems does this business have that we need to solve? We're going to spend 6 hours just like that's the quarterly retreat, right? That's the thing that's supposed to happen on the quarterly retreat. And I think I know how to facilitate that discussion, which we actually do a decent job of setting rocks and having like overall objectives and things like that. I think where I fall down is in the smaller objectives like this one. Like when the rubber meets the road and we found something that we feel like could help, I can see that I have not got them in the same place as me around this pain point. I don't know how to get them to the same place as me around this pain point.
Yeah. Well, and that might
I think
be
owning it, by the way, totally game to own it. Like,
Yeah.
by the way, this was my idea and I think it would be great, but I understand that I probably should have brought the people in the room who are like facilitating around everything and actually in the
Yeah.
weeds before just deciding this is how we were going to do something. So my apologies that I didn't do that. Let's do an identify, define, solve on this pain point and kind of go from there. Is that
Yeah, and I think you can tee up the pain point or you can narrow it down to say, I want to look at maybe back office functions in terms of how we facilitate the client experience. Or maybe it's around scheduling or communications. You can kind of narrow it down and say, there's a lot of things we could focus on today. I want us to focus on some of the pain points around this piece of our business.
so you would even recommend because the difference in what you're saying to what I'm saying, I was kind of like saying, well, this is the pain point I want to solve. And what you're saying is no. Bring them in and let them identify the pain point. Because man, that's really good. Because if they're the ones that say, well, I think our biggest pain point with the scheduling process is these missed balls between email and scheduling. I'm gonna be like, yes, that was exactly what I was hoping someone would bring up. But it didn't come from me. And so
Yeah.
their fingerprints are even on the origination of the idea.
And they probably, if it's as painful as you think it is, it'll come up. And you could even say,
Man, and if it
we might
doesn't
name
come up,
10 things
oh my
today.
gosh, if it doesn't come up, is it really the pain point? Come on, Will.
Yeah. It might be to you, but maybe it doesn't feel as painful to them. But I think you could even say, we might list 10 things today, and we can't solve for 10 things. So we'll prioritize. And you're going to help me do that too, right? Because you can kind of guide them towards the thing you think needs to be solved, but they're probably going to bring up stuff you don't even see that does need to be looked at. Maybe not today, but maybe that's for next week or next month. So I think you've got some room to use this for broader needs, but to still
Interesting.
draw out of them what you know needs to be addressed.
I thank you. I had not, I didn't know how to start this conversation. So I see now, like I can zero in on the department or the subset of the department, the function, and
Mhm.
say, hey guys, I think we've got some things we could probably help in scheduling. Would you guys agree with that? Like, do we have some things that we need to improve there? Yeah, we definitely got some things to improve there. Okay, well, let's talk about some of those pain points and just outline them here together, and let's get clear on what's the customer experience like here, and then kind of go through that process, almost auditing the process,
Mhm.
identify, define, solve, and then once it's fully, oh, here's the bottleneck in scheduling. Okay, well, how do we solve that? And
Yeah.
then let them, solution and this is interesting because I think I'm going to have to treat them like clients because with a client, I do this all the time. I coach them around, hey, this is how you get closer to this thing. I, for some reason, I think in my mind, I felt like that was inefficient with teammates, but I'm realizing that that inefficiency is what's going to turn them into a designer instead of a worker, and the whole business is going to grow because they're taking ownership.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly it. You want to find ways to engage them, and some stuff you'll say that is a problem, or maybe let's say they don't want to focus on this thing that you've identified. You can still have the conversation about what risk does it present if we don't tackle this, and can we tolerate that risk? What does
and
that
and
create
that
for
might
us?
be what it might do in that situation is change my perspective, right? I might be like, you know what, you're right, we can totally tolerate that risk. And man, do I need people to help me see my blind spots in my different pieces of what's there. So man, okay, I think I know what I need to do next. Summer, this has been fantastic. As Sam the marketer, I am signing off. I know what to do next with my team, and I appreciate all your advice.
I'm happy to help.
If I were to reach out and want to hire you, Summer, as Sam the marketer, what's the best
Yeah.
way to get in touch?
The best way is through LinkedIn. Easier to find me there, so it's just Summer Miller EDD. And I have my company, sdmintegrativeconsulting.com.
Love
You
it.
can find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on this episode of Automation Hunter. I think you really touched on some powerful points here, and I will be making this required watching for many of my teammates and mentors so that they can get a little better idea about how to get buy in.
My pleasure. It's always been fun to talk with you.
All right, over and out.